So, we're going to move on from Karate Kid, and we're going to move on to, well, slightly later that year, I think, in terms of release date, to The NeverEnding Story.
Yes, unless you're in the UK, where it was bizarrely just held up for another year for whatever reason, according to IMDb the other day. Yeah, The NeverEnding Story, which, as we discussed earlier, not only ends, I believe it's the shortest film we're going to speak about today, so -5 stars for a misleading title alone. This is, of course, the obvious next step for director Wolfgang Petersen after 1981's tense, claustrophobic Submariner classic Das Boot. This sprawling adventure in Fantasyland, just quite clearly the obvious next step. A change is as good as a rest, I suppose. Barrett Oliver's Bastian Balthazar Bucks has a problem. His father wants him to get his head out of the clouds and knuckle down on his schoolwork rather than sketching fantastic creatures in mathematics class. He's being bullied by the local thugs who steal his lunch money and dump him in dumpsters. To be honest, it's all the sort of things you'd expect if you will insist on being called Bastian Balthazar Bucks. Fleeing bullies, he ducks into a mysterious bookshop where a grumpy bookseller tempts him into borrow stealing a dangerous novel. The NeverEnding Story, boom, title drop. Arriving late to school, he ducks a maths test to go to read this book in the attic, and inside he and we learn of Fantasia, a land being consumed by the Nothing. It's believed because their leader, the aptly named childlike Empress, is ill and in some sort of fantasy coma. A hero, Noah Hathaway's Atreyu, whose name does not reference his being a child status, despite it being just as much of a thing as with the Empress, is tasked with finding a cure and given an entirely pointless MacGuffin of a necklace that, to my recollection, does absolutely hee-haw to help him. Off Atreyu goes, seeking out various sources of wisdom to help him in his quest, that mainly tell him to go and see some other source of wisdom in his quest, which, were this a video game, would have had me throwing a controller at the screen long before Atreyu's patience gives out. But along the way, we will meet his depressed horse, a nihilistic giant turtle with mental health concerns, a giant rock dude who eats rocks, which surely makes him a cannibal, and a narcoleptic bat, and, of course, a terrifying furry dragon Falcor, all to the beat of a Giorgio Moroder soundtrack. It is a weird and European film. Now, there's certainly things to appreciate.
It's German, Scott.
Yes, it's very German. Now, there's certainly things to appreciate here. Barring a few super ropey composite shots towards the end of the film, the effects work still looks pretty solid, and there's some really impressive and detailed models / puppets / amateurs, whatever. The overarching metafiction is a really neat gimmick, and the performances from our kiddie leagues are perfectly acceptable. Narratively, it's perhaps not so satisfying, although that's arguably more a problem with repeat viewings. There's enough sort of gee-whiz dressing to distract from the script, leaning rather more heavily on the actual, literal, physical part of a hero's journey, rather than a more metaphysical one, which I think only sort of works if you don't examine it all that closely. I don't have a lot of nostalgia for this. I could swear I'd seen it as a kid, but I may just be remembering the Limahl theme tune video. Overall, though, I liked it just fine. And here's a rarity. I wish it was longer. Everything's just a bit too compressed and rushed here, and the pace of it sort of undermines the supposed difficulty of this journey, and also leaves very little time for really knowing any of the characters in it, be that Bastian or Atreyu or that horse I'm supposed to care about, despite having barely seen him.
Lasagna, as I call him.
Yes. It's an entirely adequate film, and so I awarded her a prestigious Entirely Adequate Film Award, which is an award for being an adequate film, although coincidentally the award itself is also just adequate.
Yeah, I get what you're saying too about perhaps needing to stretch it a little to make it seem more of an arduous journey for Atreyu, because it's like he just sort of gets places. Yes,
it's all very abridged. Which, I would almost let it away with, were it not called The NeverEnding Story, which implies a certain amount of length to it, you know.
I do quite like the metafiction. It's an interesting idea. I don't think this film does it particularly well, but I do like the idea. The problem I have with it is that there's just not much story there.
No,
it isn't all that much fiction.
Yeah. As I say, it does lean a lot on just him walking from places to another place and trying to get past things that aren't threatening in any obvious way. Yeah. Like all that big deal that's made about him trying to get through past those sentinel statue things. It's like, but actually all you need to do is run between them, apparently. It doesn't do a great job of conveying an arduousness of the story.
It kind of shortchanges its ideas. Yeah, because it's the idea of those in particular is that it's like they look into your actual heart, and if you don't think you're worthy, they'll kill you. But if you're not worthy, but also quite quick, you're fine. Whereas like, I only saw this as an adult and definitely never saw this as a kid. I was always aware of it, curious enough, but none ever saw it.
Yeah.
But I remember so few of the details rewatching it this time. But when I saw those, I thought, it's going to be kind of like a Riddle of the Sphinx sort of thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, how'd you get past this run? So, okay. So a little unsatisfying. You mentioned the performances being quite good. I largely agree. I like the kid playing Atreyu. Apparently he's not a young Anna Kendrick, despite looking exactly like Anna Kendrick, but okay. The only problem I really had is like the kid playing Bastian Balthazar, I've got all the money, Getty, or whatever his name really is. I kind of thought he was rotten. Every time he appeared, he took me right out of it. I just thought that kid was terrible. You obviously didn't, so I guess your mileage may vary.
He certainly wasn't as good as Noah Hathaway by a long chalk, but because he was underused for most of it, apart from the end, the last couple of scenes, it didn't bother me that much, I guess. But yeah.
For me, this is very much a film of two parts, and in the end, it's not one I would recommend because I was left so dissatisfied with much of it. But it is the big problem I have with it is that the story isn't.
Yeah.
There's just not enough substance there. But the world, I love the world. Yeah. And the details and like the special effects, well, just like the design of them, like the big rock man with his rock Zimmer.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And almost all that stuff is as well, yeah. Yeah,
it's all really nice. I mean, Falcor's a right creepy dragon puppy, bastard, whatever he is, but it's like, it's really good, and the way the detail of the movements of the puppets and stuff, and the way the eyes move and things like that thing's clearly huge. There's a lot of work gone into that. It's really impressive work. And then there's a scene where Atreyu gets called to the court, and he gets given his useless, as you say, amulet and his task. And you see all these incredibly interesting characters, like the
dude with two faces.
There's a couple of them, and there's all these really interesting things. And that's the only scene in the entire film they appear in. I'm like, this is fantastic. I love that level of vision. That like they've put so much work and detail into like this thing, and they're on screen for what, 10 seconds maybe?
Yeah.
And there's a whole coast of them, and then you have the other characters you see a bit more. Actually, the guy that's got the racing snail. The racing snails were interesting. That character's not so interesting, but you've got Deep Roy, for a lot of people might know from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, who plays all of the Oompa Loompas. Him and his bat. Or do I have those confused which one has which steed? It doesn't matter.
No, that's right, yeah. I think.
But there's just some wonderful designs there. The rock creature is so good, and then Falcon, and then there's some nice wee, just in terms of the way the world works, nice wee fake outs too of the old woman and the old man just before the statues, and you suddenly find out they're tiny.
Yeah.
And it's just nice wee fun bits like that. So the world and the design and the characters are fantastic, and the story is meh.
Yeah.
It's a real pity. I mean, there are some quite sinister things in there too. It starts off with that really quite upbeat, poppy 1980s Lamal song, while the most terrifying looking clouds I've ever seen play across the screen. Yeah. And then there's like a burned body as well. It's a kind of strange mix, but yeah, I like the world. I just wish they'd done more in it. That's the problem I have with this in the end.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's adapting the first half of a book, right, and not the second of it. I think that's kind of got covered in some of the sequels, but there's definitely a lot more need to play in this world that they so casually rip apart in this one. I would happily have sat and watched a great number of adventures in it before you destroyed it. But would I recommend it? I wouldn't recommend people avoid it, but I can't really recommend people seek it out either at this point in time, unless you're if you're big into the sort of visual design of things, then I think you'd probably get enough of a joy out of it to at least have it be on your queue, or at least give it some consideration. But yeah, if you're more of a narrative person, yeah, this doesn't deliver.
Yeah, what's it run to 89 minutes, I think, isn't it? So it really is short.
If
so,
that.
Yeah. Although, curiously, you said it's the one you might want more of. I think, weirdly, I think because so little actually happens, I did find my attention wandering a little bit towards the end of this.
Okay. Right.
Even though it's so short, again, it's just because I'm enjoying the world, but like, I kind of want something to happen and nothing's happening, and it was frustrating me. But yeah, again, just another shout out to the character design work, and for something that is barely on screen, they put so much effort into it. I really like that. I kind of feel bad at the same time. I was like, that people didn't see their work represented fully.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the fact that, no, we don't need to see it more. We don't need to repeat it. This is just fantastic. Here you go.
Yeah.
I like that. Yes. The rest is a little disappointing, unfortunately.